Hello everybody, my name is Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. It is the last week of me living in SF, and I knew that before I moved to Phoenix and started a whole new life and a whole new journey that I had to film this video while I was still here and while I still remembered. I have been getting so many questions about how I trained for my marathon, what my running plan was, any tips and tricks for people who are just getting into running. I know this video is pretty long overdue, so thank you for bearing with me, but today I'm going to tell you all about my entire marathon journey. That includes the 2 marathons I've already run so far, how I trained for them, how I worked with injury prevention, how I stuck with my plan, got through it, and kind of where I am today. So without further ado, let's get started. I have a very loose outline on my phone that I will try to follow. So to give you a little bit of backstory, I kind of grew up running. Like, I did cross country when I was in middle school and also a little bit in high school, a little bit of track in high school as well. I was not good by any means, but that's just to say that I grew up running, and my father was also a runner, so he kind of instilled that practice in me. Like, I remember I watched him finish his first ever marathon at the Chicago Marathon, and I was so inspired by him, so I always kind of had that to look up to. I think I really started consistently running after COVID, so I want to say somewhere around 2021 in college. The Berkeley 10K was the first race that I had ever ran as an adult. First thing I ever trained for, and then I remember crossing that finish line was a feeling that I cannot put into words. Like, so much accomplishment and joy and so many endorphins, and I was like, I have to do this again. So then I remember the next year, I think it was either my senior year or junior year, it had to have been my senior year, I ran the Berkeley half marathon. So from 6 miles to 13.1 miles, and it was my first ever half marathon, and it was an incredible experience. So kind of from there, I started stepping it up. Like, I started with the 10K, I did a couple of halves here and there, and then I ran my first ever full marathon last March, so March of 2024. After the Oakland Marathon back in March of 2024, I did a couple of more halves, again sprinkled around the year here and there, until my most recent full marathon, which was the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon this past June. So I've experienced all of the lengths up to a full marathon. And the biggest question that I often get from a lot of people who haven't really dipped their toes into racing is, when do I know if I'm ready for a full? I personally liked building up the distances, because it's like, once you cross the finish line of a 10K, you know that you're capable of running a full 6 miles, so why not try for the other one? So I think if you're hesitant about jumping into the deep end, definitely would not recommend going from not running at all to training for a full marathon. I think that building up to it not only builds your mileage and also muscle, endurance, it also helps you build that mental endurance and toughness that is absolutely required for marathon training. Last thing I will say about building your way up is that the more training cycles you go through, the better you'll be able to acclimate to a longer training cycle. So yeah, that is how I got into running marathons. Now to go through a bit more of the specifics. So my first ever marathon that I ran in March of 2024 was the Oakland Marathon. For that marathon, I literally I ran to finish it. I just wanted to finish. I did not care about time at all, and I wanted to be happy and not completely in pain when I finished. So I think I finished around 4:30. Maybe? I honestly don't remember. For that one, I used a paper running plan that I just found off of a pretty popular running website, and I followed it. It was like a chart. I didn't love it, but I'll go into what I used this time. For this most recent marathon, the San Diego Rock and Roll, I ran a 3:57, so a huge improvement from my first race. This time I was trying, I had a goal in mind. My goal was to break 4 hours, which I'm super happy that I did. I think my average pace was an 8:55, so again, huge improvement from the previous year, but I also I had that goal in mind throughout my entire training season, so it definitely helped propel me and make me a bit more motivated. That leads me to everything I did for this most recent marathon training cycle. In terms of running plan, I hopped on the bandwagon and I used the app Runna. I believe it is a paid app if you want to get the full benefits, but I found a life hack and I found a way to use the app for free, and it gives you just the bare bones. So Runna is really cool because you can put in the date of your race, when you're gonna start your training, how many days a week you wanna run for, what day you wanna do your long run, all of these other details, and from that they build a customized training plan for you. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I understand the hype. I get why so many people use it now. I didn't pay a dime for it. I only used the free version, which gave me like the bare bones running schedule. So yes, I primarily used Runna for my training plans. It worked really, really well for me. I know that you can also like use AI or any other online tools to make a running plan for you. Next thing I'll briefly talk about is gear. Shoes, shoes, shoes. One thing that I learned a little later into like training for a race is how much shoes matter. Because I mean, like, think about it. If you're training for so many races, imagine all of the impact that your poor feet are feeling. It is absolutely worth it to do your proper research, do your due diligence on running shoes, and pick the one that works best for you. If you're gonna become a chronic runner, a marathon runner, I highly recommend making the splurge in shoes. It is a worthy investment to protect your foot health, protect literally every other part of your body. Every step that you take, it radiates throughout your entire body. So it is so important to invest in a good pair of running shoes. These were the first ever running shoes that I ran with, period. So my 10K, half marathon, my first full marathon, I only ran in the Hoka Cliftons. I believe these are the Clifton 9s. For my earlier races, I ran in like the Clifton 7s or 8s, whatever. These are really, really good training road running shoes. I think they're great for beginners. I mean, they took me through my first entire marathon training block. If you need like a reliable road running shoe, Cliftons are wonderful. They have like a little bit of support on the bottom, but not a ton. I will say that with all of my running shoes, I do have custom insoles that I run with. This is what a custom insole looks like. It's like the lowest layer of your shoe. And if you can see here, you can see that it is molded to have like support only on very specific parts of the insole. So I got my custom insoles from Roadrunner and I get them replaced, I wanna say like once every year and a half. But this is because naturally when I run, I have overpronated arches, which means that like if you wanna think about it like your feet are flat like this, naturally my arches kind of go in like this. And so you can imagine if you're running so much and your arches kind of cave in, the weight distribution is uneven, and so I used to get like a lot of like hip pain, back pain, etc. So I went to Roadrunner Sports. I think they have locations all across the United States, and I got a pair of custom insoles fitted. It just gives me that extra support on my inner arch so that instead of being overpronated inwards, it's more of a neutral stance. Clifton 9s, great beginner shoe. I think you can do a 10K with this, you can do a half marathon, you can do a full, love them. When I was training for my San Diego marathon though, because I had like a goal in mind, I also noticed that I was getting injured more than I wanted to. So I did a little more research and invested a little more in my gear. The shoe that I ended up doing most of my training and racing in were these. These are the Asics Nova Blast. To me, the Nova Blasts are like a step up from the Clifton. You can see here like the build of the shoe. There's just way more cushion, way more support. I also used my custom insoles in these shoes, but yes, I love my Nova Blast. They are so comfortable to run in, and I also appreciate that they're pretty light. For a more cushioned, supported shoe, they're super light, very versatile, no complaints. I ran the entire San Diego marathon in these, and I love them. I love them so much. That's all I can say. At one point during my most recent marathon training season, I did try the Nike Alpha Flies for speed workouts, and I wanted to race in those as well. I did not like them. I did not like them at all. They are super tight. There's like no arch support whatsoever, and so my arches were constantly like overpronating inwards. The Alpha Flies are a carbon plated shoe, which means that like at the bottom part here, there's literally a carbon plate that allows you to spring forward, which gives you a lot more momentum, and it just makes you way, way faster. I did not like the carbon plate whatsoever. It was just really hard, and I felt that after I did like any speed workout in the Alpha Flies, my shins would hurt. I am not fast enough for this. I don't need this right now. Also, not to mention, they're super expensive. They weren't my favorite, but for a lot of people, I know that they're a very popular racing shoe. Last pair of shoes that I will show are these. These are the Brooks Glycerin Max. Look at how chunky these shoes are. These shoes are insanely comfortable. They are so soft, so cushioned, so supportive. Because of that, very heavy. So I use my Brooks Glycerin for mostly easy runs. So I usually would do my easy runs on Thursdays, and I would use these because they're just soft and they're like running on a cloud. I used them for a couple of long runs, and they were fine. My only qualm with these shoes is because they're so cushy and big, they're really heavy. So I would not recommend racing in Brooks Glycerin Max, but they are a really good easy run or recovery run shoe. Finally, you might be asking, why on earth would you need so many shoes? First off, I will say you can get through an entire marathon training block with one pair of shoes. That's what I did last year for the Oakland Marathon, my first ever marathon. I only ran in the Hoka Cliftons and I was fine. Now that being said, I think if you have the means to, and if you're comfortable, investing in at least 2 pairs of running shoes is a great idea for a couple of reasons. Number one, different running shoes have different makes, different benefits that all of them carry. Like even if you're just comparing the Nova Blast to the Glycerin Max, you can see they look insanely different. They have completely different engineering, and because of that, it gives you a totally different experience. So different shoes have different benefits, and you can obviously do more of your personal and private research on that, but that's the benefit of having more than one running shoe. Another benefit for me is that it causes less wear and tear for your shoes. If you're wearing more than one pair of shoes and you're like kind of equally dispersing the mileage out, there'll be a longer duration, longer lifespan of your shoes because you're not putting all your mileage on one. Last thing I will say is, especially if you're the type of person who's like running a lot, like you're running back-to-back days, I did read online that for a lot of running shoes, after you do a run on one day, you should at least give it like a full day to completely recover, meaning like for the foam to completely expand back again. Again, it just promotes the duration of your shoe and prevents it from wearing down so quickly. That pretty much sums up my shoes, and then I wanted to share 2 more pieces of gear or accessories that I use religiously during my marathon training block. First one was this running belt. This one is from Lululemon. I use this every single long run. I would put my phone in here, I'd put keys, gels. I've tried a good number of running belts. The flip belt is a pretty good one, but that one's just like, the band is super wide. So yes, I really like this belt from Lululemon. I usually have it sit like right on my hip bone, or if I want to move it up sometimes, just like around where my belly button is, and it stays really well. It doesn't bounce. I think out of all the running belts I've tried so far, the one from Lulu is my favorite. And then last piece of gear that I use again for every single long run is this hat. This is a running hat from the brand Arc'teryx. I got it for my birthday from my good friend Nathan Simon Isaac. And this was an incredible, incredible running hat. I'll put it on right now so you can see what it looks like. For your long runs, you're spending like 1, 2, 3 hours out there running in the sun. It is so important to have sun protection. I know a lot of people, they'll do hats, sunglasses. I never liked running with sunglasses that much. Maybe that'll be my next gear that I purchase, but I really, really loved this hat. What I like about this hat from Arc'teryx in particular is that it's specifically designed for running, and so you can see like the, what is this called? The bill of the hat? I don't know, whatever. This flap of the hat, it's pretty wind resistant. So like usually with regular hats, if you're running into the wind will like knock the hat off of your head. This one in particular, the bill of the hat can like bend up and down like that. So if you're running into the wind, it'll just flap up like that, but it'll still stay really secure on your head. It looks really silly when I'm wearing it right now on the camera, but I promise you, this is a fantastic running hat. I used it for every single long run, and yeah, one of my favorite running gear that I own. And then last thing to wrap up like running gear is I wanted to talk a little bit about fueling. I think this is something that I barely focused on during my first training block, and then really, really tried to prioritize my second. If you are running more than 6 miles, at least that's like my standard, you have to have fuel. And by fuel, I mean either a goo gel or a Cliff Block or gummy bears even. Like you need something. Your body needs something to keep going. I remember in the past, I was for some reason so against fueling. I was like, oh, I just want to raw dog this and run 10 miles with absolutely no fuel. Okay, great. If you want to do that, kudos, you can do that. You just won't be happy and your body will not recover as quickly as you want. It'll not perform as well as you want it to. Highly, highly recommend investing in some fuel. I have tried so many different things. I've tried the honey stinger waffles. I've tried Cliff Blocks. I've tried, I think like Gatorade makes like little energy blocks as well. I've tried Goos, and I will by far say my favorite are the Goo Roctane gels. Love those. There's something about the Roctane ones in particular that my body just responds really, really well to. Like I've done long runs with just regular Goo versus long runs with Goo with Roctane in it. And always whenever I'm doing the long runs with the Roctane, I just have more energy, my pace is better, I have more control, and I just end happier and less sluggish. Those are by far my favorite. I also do like honey stinger waffles. I'll usually only have one of those like as a pre-workout though. Like I'm not gonna carry a waffle with me in my running belt if I'm running 12 miles. When I ran like my actual full marathon, here's how I fueled. First, I started off with a honey stinger waffle before, like I would say like 10 minutes before my run. Also, a piece of advice is that keep your routine the same between all of your long runs and race day. So what I mean by that is for all of my long runs, I wore the exact same outfit. I wore the exact same shoes. I fueled the exact same way because you need to train your body to be prepared for the schedule that you're going to be giving it on race day. So that being said, all of my fueling schedules were the same for my long runs as well as for my race. I started off with one honey stinger waffle like 10 minutes before I start my run. 4 miles in, I would take 3 of the Cliff Blocks. From there on out, I would alternate every 4 to 5 miles with a Goo. So what that looked like for my marathon was like in the morning having a honey stinger waffle, and then mile 4, I had 3 Cliff Blocks. Mile like 9, I had a gel. And then mile 13, I had a gel. Maybe mile 18, I had a gel. Mile 22, I had a gel. And then the last like 4 miles of the marathon, I think I had another gel at some point, maybe like mile 24. I don't really remember. I blacked out. I think the golden standard is about every 45 minutes, take another gel. So yes, if you're not fueling and you're not using any sort of energy or Goo or gel or whatever, definitely get some. So at this point, you've got your training plan, you've got all your gear, you got your shoes, your belt, your hat, your fuels, and you're running, following your training plan. And all of a sudden, one day, maybe Monday after your Sunday long run, you wake up with an ache in your legs and you're like, what is that? Injury prevention is one of the hardest things to manage when you're training for a race. I will say almost every training block that I've experienced in my life, I have gotten injured one way or another. Sometimes the injury lasts like a week and then I take a week off of running. Other times I've had it where like I had an injury that lasted me like 2 months that I was still battling with. So what are common injuries for running and how do you prevent them? I remember when I first started running, the first injury that I had was Achilles tendonitis. I think mostly because I was not running with any sort of foot support, so that's why I got custom insoles. I've also had hip pain because of like an imbalance. I've also had runner's knee because I've been upping mileage too much. And the most common injury that many runners get is shin splints. Shin splints are absolutely the worst and they are so easy to get. Honestly, any running injury is very easy to get and very hard to get rid of. The best way to prevent injury is to take your time. What I mean by that is do not up your mileage too quickly. This is something I struggled especially with closer to like the beginning of my obsession with running, is because you want to run more, you want to up your mileage, you want to go faster, you want to go harder, you want to go longer. Your lungs can handle it, sure. Your brain can handle it, sure. But your body cannot. There's a very common runner's rule that you're supposed to follow. I think it's called the 10% rule, where you should only be increasing your mileage 10% every single week. So like let's say for instance, 1 week you're running 10 miles in that week. It could be 3 + 3 + 1, it could be 5 + 5, whatever it is. Let's say 1 week you're running 10 miles. the following week, you should only be running 10% more than your previous week. So 10% of 10 is 1. The following week, you should only be running 11 miles maximum. Usually, if you follow that 10% rule, you'll be fine. Also, a lot of like running plans, if you use a running plan like on Runna, for instance, they'll automatically integrate the 10% rule in there for you. Bottom line about injury prevention is do not go too hard too fast. Do not up your mileage too quickly. Let's say you tried that, but inevitably you still end up getting shin splints or an injury. What do you do then? Stop running. Stop running. Just stop. And it is so much easier said than done because you're in the middle of a training season. You don't want to lose all your progress. I promise you, if you stop running for 1 week, just start with a week of not being on your feet, you're not gonna lose all the endurance that you've already built up. I promise you that will not happen. What you should do, however, is instead of running, opt for other exercises that can still increase your aerobic activity but not cause like the constant pounding on your feet. So what I did whenever I was injured was I would replace like my easy runs with a swim. So if I was doing a 6-mile easy run, or I was scheduled for a 6-mile easy run, instead I would do a 60-minute lap swim. You can also do elliptical. Elliptical is fantastic because you can always like bump up the resistance to make it a little bit harder. And what I would do is I would convert mileage to time and try to find an alternative for that. So for instance, if I was scheduled to do like a 5-mile speed workout, maybe I'm replacing that with 50 minutes on the elliptical at high resistance. Find alternative workouts for your body to do that will not exacerbate your injury, but rather let your body heal while also allowing you to still like have exercise and get some cardio in. Other things for injuries, I love compression sleeves. Like especially when I had shin splints, I wore compression sleeves. I think they just help with blood flow and they help you recover a little bit quicker. KT tape is also an excellent option, gives you a little bit more support. I think very similar idea. It just increases and improves blood flow so that you recover a bit more quickly. And of course, you can follow the ICE acronym. I think that's what it is, ICE, Ice Compression Elevate. Kind of related to that is another great way to help injury prevention is cross training and rest. When I did my first marathon training block, I just ran like a lot. I definitely did not put as much emphasis on cross training as I should have, or did not take the proper rest that I should have as well. So this time around, I really tried to focus on strength training and rest. My ideal week in my life for marathon training would be Monday, I always try to do hot yoga sculpt. Tuesday, I would do a speed workout. Wednesday, usually rest. Thursday, an easy run. Friday, lift. And then either Saturday, Sunday, I would do a long run one day and then rest another day. So all in all, I'm really running 3 times a week, lifting 2 times a week, and then resting for 2 days of the week. And that for me was the perfect balance. My body responded really, really well to that. So if you can integrate strength training, so like lifting heavy weights, there are a lot of specific workouts that improve like your running form. You can like look them up on YouTube, but I would highly recommend those. For me, I also really liked hot yoga sculpt because the room is so hot, and so I felt that like my muscles were able to like stretch and relax while also build and heal. So I loved hot sculpt if that's an option for you. Rest days are so important. Do not skip out on rest days. And a rest day doesn't mean that you have to like sit on the couch all day. You can go for an easy swim. You can go for a walk. Like you can still move your body, but do it in a way that allows you to recover and heal. 2 more things that I will say because this video is getting super long. Let's say you're into your training block and you're following your plan and you're doing everything right, but you hit a mental wall where you're like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Like, I'm tired. I don't want to devote half of my Sunday morning to running 16 miles. What do you do then? This is when I think finding community is really helpful. For my second marathon training block, I trained and ran with one of my really close friends who actually ran the marathon with me. Catherine and I did a lot of like speed workouts together. We would do Barry's classes together. We've done a few long runs together. She ran the Monterey half with me, the Napa half with me, and then we finally ran the San Diego Rock and Roll together. So if you are able to find other people in your life who run too, or like sign up for a race with one of your friends, I promise you it helps so much because it keeps both of you accountable, and it's just really nice to have that shared camaraderie. Something else I would do is if I would get really bored on a long run, which I often did, I would just call someone. I'd call my dad or my friends from home or a friend that I haven't spoken to in a really long time. It's nice to just have that company with you. The final thing I will talk about in this video, and not to mention this video is definitely not all encompassing. I am missing so many things I think that are important to having a really good marathon and marathon training season. So it's definitely not all encompassing by any means. I just like cannot sit still for like more than 30 minutes and it's been a really long time already. Last thing I'll talk about is the major lifestyle shift that follows marathon training. For me, I think training for a marathon, it takes a lot out of your life. I mean, think about it. You're devoting hours a week to it. You are changing your diet to have more carb and protein intake. Maybe you're drinking less. Maybe you're going out a little bit less. And that for me was a really hard lifestyle shift to make. Initially, I had a really hard time setting boundaries. Another thing that I did that helped me in the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon, for instance, is like the first 6 months of this most recent year in 2025, I was mostly sober. Like I barely drank alcohol for health reasons, but also because I knew I was training for my marathon and I just like hated waking up hungover. I knew that alcohol was not good for my body and I just wanted to do everything I can to make me feel strong and healthy. So that being said, when you're training for a race, it is very likely that you'll have to make some lifestyle shifts. Making sure that you're getting enough food. Maybe that means like cooking more at home so that you can tailor your diet. Maybe that means getting enough sleep and you can't go out for as long as you used to. Maybe you're not drinking as much. Whatever that looks like for you, just be mentally aware that when you're devoting yourself to something as big as marathon training where like it's almost taking up your whole life, you should expect to see some sort of lifestyle shift. And that's very difficult, and initially it's definitely a hard thing to acclimate to, but remember that it's still part of your training. Like this discipline and this rigor and this grit, it is all part of your marathon training and it's all part of the entire process. I'll end on this note. Something that I read that was very, very impactful to me was that while you're training for your marathon, remember this: the months leading up to your race, that is the marathon. All the hours, all the early mornings, all the runs, all the injuries, all the boundaries, all of that, that is your marathon. The day of your actual race, that's simply your celebration. Keep that idea and that thought in the back of your head because it's true. Like running a marathon, it takes months to prepare for, and it is in those months where you're finding that inner discipline and grit and determination and strength and endurance. And the months leading up to it are the formative months, the character defining months. The actual day of the race, you've already done the hard work. You've already made the growth. You've already had all these experiences and you're just there to run the damn race and celebrate yourself. With that, I'll wrap up this video. Again, to say that I am just one person, this is only my experience. I would highly recommend doing your own due diligence and performing your own research. There's a bunch of good running blogs online. One book that I read during my training was Master the Marathon by Ali Nolan. I love that book so much. I rented it from the library, so it was free, but I would literally buy it to keep it for myself and reread every single marathon training season that I do. This is a super long-winded video with a lot of information. I hope that it helped anybody who's watching who's interested in running, whether that's a 10K or a half or a full, or just starting your running experience and journey in general. Thank you guys so much for watching and just following along my marathon training journey. As of right now, I am preparing to move and change my entire life to go to medical school. So I do not have a race planned yet, but I am keeping my eye out on the Arizona Rock and Roll, which I believe is coming up in January. It's only a half marathon and potentially looking at running the Napa full marathon next March. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and I will see you in my next one. Bye.